Problem 51 from the review. First of all, you have to know what the sine curve looks like. And I hope that you know that the sine of x looks something like this with a period of 2 pi. Now I'm going to look at 1/2 sine of 4x, just that part of it. So let's look at that. That would give you an amplitude of up to 1/2 down to -1/2. The 4x, your period, is 2 pi over 4, or pi over 2. So now that's your period, pi over 2. That's pi over 2 over. So now I start with the initial points. You know that the sine curve, at the beginning, there's a 0. The middle, there's a 0, and the end, there's a 0. So let me do the end one. So there's beginning point, end point. The middle, 1/2 of a period, 1/2 of pi over 2 is pi over 4, 0. A quarter of the way through the period, so 1/4 of pi over 2, which is pi over 8, I'm at a max. And 3/4 of the way through the period, I'm at a min. So 3/4 of pi over 2 would be 3 pi over 8. So at 3 pi over 8, I'm at a minimum. Now, I'm going to look at that plus pi over 4. Plus pi over 4 makes it go left. Left is x direction, negative. So I am going to add negative pi over 4 in the x direction and nothing in the y, because I'm not going up or down to all those points. So my first point then would be negative pi over 4, 0. I'm going to do the same thing to the next point, adding the same point. Common denominator would be 8. So if I multiply top and bottom by 2, I'll have negative 2 pi over 8 plus pi over 8 would give me negative pi over 8, 1/2. So that's that one right there. Do the same thing to this one, pi over 4 plus negative pi over 4 is 0. So for this point, I'll have 0, comma, 0. 3 pi over 8 plus a negative pi over 4, comma, 0. Common denominator again, if I multiply top and bottom by 2, 3 pi over 8 minus 2 pi over 8 gives me pi over 8. So pi over 8, negative 1/2. And then the last one, if I add that same thing, pi over 4, a negative pi over 4, 0, plus pi over 2, common denominator, multiply top and bottom by 2. I have 2 pi over 4 plus a negative pi over 4 gives me pi over 4, comma, 4, 0. So now you can graph each of those points. Negative pi over 4, 0. And I'm going to call each line maybe pi over 8. So negative pi over 4, 0 would be about, where is it? Why is it not writing? About right there. Negative pi over 8, 1/2. I'm going to do 2 up as 1/2. Would be about right there. 0, 0. Be right in the center. Pi over 8, negative 1/2. Be right about there. And pi over 4, 0 gets me, oops, isn't graphing very well, right there. And so if I were going to graph it, and I don't know how well it'll turn out on this, but it would look something like, I don't know why It's not graphing. And something like this. And then you just follow the exact same pattern. This really went through 0, 0. It's just hard to do on this recording. Okay. Next one I want to do is another sine graph. Negative sine of pi over 6x plus pi over 6. I need it in the right format. So I'm going to factor out pi over 6. So y is equal to negative sine of pi over 6. When I factor out pi over 6, I end up with pi over 6 times x plus 1. Remember, when you factor out a pi over 6, it's like dividing each term by pi over 6. So now I want to figure out what the points are just for that. So remember, the original graph, sine graph, looks something like that. But it's a negative, so instead of going up, it's going to go down. So the sine graph looks something like this. Okay? Period is 2 pi over b. So your period is 12. So this point is 12 out. It's at 12, 0. So now let me mark my points. Beginning, middle, and end are my zeros. So there's my beginning, 0, 0. My end is 12, 0. Half of a period, or half of 12, is 6. So 6, 0. My minimum now happens a quarter of the way through the period. So 1/4 of 12. So 1/4 times 12 would give you 3, negative 1. And 3/4 of 12. So 3/4 times 12 gives you 9. And I'm at a maximum of 1. Now, let me take that into account. That is left 1. Going left 1, you would subtract 1. So my new points would be negative 1, 0. The next one would be 3 minus 1 is 2, negative 1. 6, 0 minus 1 would be 6 minus 1 is 5. 9 minus 1 is 8. I'm at 8, 1. And then 12 minus 1 is 11, 0. So there are my points. And then just graph those points and then just continue the same pattern. And I'm not going to draw it on the graph because of the pen does not work very well, but just follow the same pattern. I'll try to do a little bit, but I don't know if it'll work. Yeah, see, it's not writing very well. Let me see what else I can do. If I maybe do a circle, maybe that'll work. So I have negative 1, 0. And I have 2, negative 1. And I have 5, 0. And I have 8, 1. Which is right about there. And then I have 9, 10, 11, 0. Might be right about there. That's outside of there. And then just graph what you have. And then just keep that same pattern. Notice every 3, from negative 1 to 2, every 3, I had a critical point, whether it's a max, a min, or a 0. Okay, so if I go 3 over, if I went 3 over from this last point here, 1, 2, 3, I would go up 1. So do the same pattern. 1, 2, 3 is another 0. 1, 2, 3. So it would look something like this. And just keeps repeating itself. That's the sine curve.